You are now listening to the Artsindy Crossroads show. Here's Suk-Yen Lee, host for CBC's Definitely Not the Opera and former VJ for Much Music.
I just Googled Nick Panu online, and I'm just trying to get a visual image of this person I'm talking to, you.
You can go to YouTube.
You're in a room wearing a black long wig.
Will Sasso stars for Mad TV and another series coming out on CBS.
Your intro there sounded like I was just making my way down to the ring for a MMA fight.
Interviews with Ruth Moody, the Wailing Jennies.
You're so welcome. Take care.
Trey Anthony, motivational speaker David Roche. Karen LeBlanc, the star of Nurse, the Fighter Boy.
Hi, Nick. I'm really good, and thank you for asking
People in film, theater, music, the arts. Coming to you from UFV campus, you are listening to Civil Radio 101.7 FM. I'm Nick, and I'll be your host for this hour of the Artsindy Crossroads show. Yeah, good late afternoon to everyone here in the Valley, and hope you had an awesome Christmas, and best wishes for the new year, and be safe out there. Yeah, and I have an interview with Margo Prentice. She's a comedian and also a writer, teacher. She's going to be having a show coming up in Chilliwack. The date's going to be announced shortly. I guess I'll have it for you next week or the week after. So, we talked to Margo about, stand-up comedy. And then interview with Eric Polnick, who goes by Sean Polnick now. So, we just have a whole show on comedy now. Actually, I'm working on a documentary through CITR. And this is my topic. Really chewing into this, trying to find something with some real tension. But yeah, if you want to talk about comedy or anything, still looking for interviews, just send me an email at nickindy2000@yahoo.ca. That's Nick, NICKINDY 2000 at yahoo.ca. So what's going on around the valley? Make sure you guys are all safe. I mean, driving, because there's a ton of snow out there. I don't know what the forecast is for this New Year's Eve weekend. But you gotta play it smart, safe. Don't drink and drive. And even if you're not drinking, if the weather's real bad, just take your time. There's no hurry. So why don't we get started right now? This is an interview with Margo Prentice. Listeners, right now we have this pleasure, this opportunity to be sitting with Margo Prentice, author, writer, teacher, and stand-up comedian.
Yes, thank you for asking to interview me. I'm all those things. I do a bit of everything. I love the stand-up. I started 5 years ago, so 70-something. I'm nearly 80, so I woke up last week and it was my 79th birthday, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. When did I get that old? Anyway, I love the stand-up. I talk about my family. I talk about my husband who has dementia. I make fun of sometimes politicians. And I do have a couple of characters in my repertoire, and one is Aunt Nadia. Now, she was a Ukrainian aunt from Winnipeg, and she had her views about politics. I'm working on a new one, Hildy, my hairdresser. So I have characters in my brain, and I see things in a funny way sometimes. Not all the time, but anyway, that's part of my stand-up. I took a course from Janice Bannister, wonderful teacher. My most recent performance was at the Surrey Civic Center, I think it's called, and it was Flash from the Past, and there was a imitation Lucille Ball and Phyllis Diller, and then I played myself. It was a really good gig. So I haven't done very much comedy-wise, but I plan to get back in the new year. I have a show coming on a Rosedale pub in Chilliwack. And that is really funny because I'm a little edgy, and these people are conservative farmers, but they like me. They keep asking me to come back, and I love it there. So I go there once, and that's my out-of-town gig. I've also performed in Prince George, where I'm from, and when I was in Mexico, I performed at the resort I was at, And when I was in Italy at a writers group, a writers retreat, I did a show for them as well. So I've been performing all over. Maybe not the United States, no, but done a few gigs. Yeah, so that's been my career so far. Comedy career.
So listeners, mark that date down your calendar. Your next show will be in Chilliwack, and we'll mention that date again, and we'll speak again in the very immediate near future. Margo, I mean, you didn't make a conscious decision to first try comedy. It just kind of happened. You were doing some improv. But once you started doing it, I'll let you explain how you got started. But once you did it, did you find it really cathartic? Like any demons you had, or depression, or it just helped, or it was kind of a release? Like it helped for your overall well-being, mental health. I mean that mental health in a general way. Like we all have those issues. Like just to feel good about ourselves, or just feel relaxed.
Well, writing. I've been writing for a long time, and I have a really wicked past. And the writing was a cathartic for me. Somebody told me, well, you have the scars, but when you write about it, you remove the scars. You asked me about comedy. Yes and no. I just have fun, and having fun is in itself helps endorphins. And I'm in chronic pain with rheumatoid arthritis. When I get up on the stage or when I know I'm performing, I have no pain, and I'm good for a couple of days. Just the high of being on stage and having a live audience, and that's what comedy does. Now, one of the reasons I started was it was on a bucket list. I had directed the Golden Age Theater for 15 years. I've just retired, and I always directed people on the stage, and I never had my turn. So I decided I wanted to do stand-up, and it's been really fun, and I've done a lot of shows, been in a lot of contests, and been out of the country, and just had a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's an important point. A lot of endorphins. I don't know why. Like I've also done comedy, but just something about being on stage that endorphin. Because for me, it helps with my depression. I didn't even realize it till I started doing it. Like I started drinking less. Yeah. The more I performed, and even totally phased the drinking thing out. I'm doing comedy. You also mentioned...
right now I'm a full-time caretaker to my husband who has dementia, congestive heart failure. He's very, very ill. But some of the things he says I can put in my routine, and that's to a senior audience. Because there is funny in everything in life. There's a sad side and a happy side. Like there's going to be a day when he's not going to recognize me. Like, are you my wife? And I'll say yes. And he'll say, good, you're a pretty one. I know this is going to happen. And when I perform in front of people that are dealing with this, they come to me and they have somebody to relate to. They're going through this as well. So that's just one. This is something new that I'm working on it.
Yeah, when we talk about serious issues, like comedy, talking about something that's really serious, you mentioned an important point that it's something that people can connect to, and it can also help them. Making fun of it, why does making fun of something serious, like a lot of comics do this, making fun of something serious, yeah, in a nutshell, how is that therapeutic? Like, it is when you do that, make fun of something really serious. Sometimes it says some truth on it.
I think one of my favorite comedians, Katrina, had cancer, and she talks about it, and it makes you laugh, and she's wonderful, and other people can relate to, this is not funny, but some things are funny. And when you're sick, there's always a funny side of life. Always. And that is part of being mentally healthy. If you can see things not at the bottom, but just bring it up and bring it a little happy.
It's a positive experience then, that release, and that positive experience can take you to another positive experience. And you have that positive energy that maybe more...
Well, not only performing it, but thinking about it and writing it down. This is very, very cleansing. It's out. It's on paper. It's connected from my brain, my hand, to a piece of paper. And I write it down. The process of writing is really important, too, writing comedy. I see something silly in a newspaper. It strikes me as silly. So I can write a joke about it. There's so many incidents. You just read the Metro and you can find a lot of joke material just reading the headlines because they're really quite bizarre.
You know, Trump was elected president of the United States. I was actually talking to a comedian about this, and he was saying a lot of people are maybe part of the reason he got, I don't know if it's the reason or part of the, well, he said it had something to do with people are sick to death of political correctness, especially in the States. Is that why you think a lot of people, not necessarily you or me, because we talked about this earlier, how dirty comedy has gotten, but actually not necessarily some stuff you would agree with, like issues of race. You know, comedy, we talk about the performer, but also for the audience, it's a release, right? Like, do you think audiences are sick to death of political correctness in this day and age?
Absolutely. I am 79 years old. Political correctness is like fairly new to me. I still use some of the words. And my grandson, oh, Grandma, you shouldn't call them that. Oh, God, what am I going to call them now? The language has changed. The political correctness, yeah. Let's not be political correct all the time. Let's not, not in telling jokes. Do not directly target or try and hurt somebody. It's just changed so much for me. I have not incorporated that much. Yes, I have, but I tell it in story forms. I have a transgendered joke about my cat. And it's funny. And I'm not offending anybody, but I'm talking about it. So it's hard. I have a mixed race family. My children are part Chinese. I have a brown daughter and they're all religions. I have a Jewish son-in-law, so I can kind of joke about some of the things in my family. Yeah,
and listeners, I saw the pictures. Beautiful family you have there.
Yeah, and I was way ahead of my time. I was a cultural pioneer. I married mixed racially in the 50s. Wow, did I ever have a hard time. I got fired from my job. I harassed my neighbors, couldn't find a place to rent. My children grew up with the bias that they thought they were native children because they're half Chinese. But my children are better for it. My two sons' best friends are native boys, still, and they're grown-ups. And they had a lot of compassion and empathy. When they said, oh, they're making fun of me, they think I'm a native person. And I said, well, just try and think about walking in their shoes. And it made them better people, totally. So I don't like it when sometimes I've been accused of being racist in one of my jokes, and they don't know where I'm coming from, but that's okay. Oh, I know. I love my family. It's also cathartic for the audience to laugh at things that are not correct or things that are strange but not strange, and make fun of people in a good way, not a cruel way. And that's really important when you do stand-up.
Listeners, right now we are on the line and have this pleasure, this opportunity to be speaking with local stand-up comedian Eric Polnick.
Hey, what's going on, Nick?
Yeah, doing good. How have you been?
Doing good, relatively.
I guess you've been burning the midnight oil, writing jokes, as well as the exams you've...
Yeah, school. I'm taking some courses at UBC this semester. And, I just had my first midterm. And, I'm balancing that with work and stand-up right now.
Eric, you've been up 45 times since January?
Yeah, something like that. I wish I was keeping track. When I first started, I was committed to the idea of writing a journal of everything that went right and everything that went wrong. But I'm incredibly lazy, so that just hasn't happened. And I estimate around 45 times since January. That's not that much compared to a lot of the comedians. I'm kind of I'm a bit lazier compared to a lot of the people who I started out around the same time, back in January-ish. And it's sort of, I kind of regret that because I can sort of see how much more they've progressed just from having that stage time and just getting comfortable on stage a lot. I know a lot of guys who will do 5 nights a week, something like that. And they'll do a set at Corduroy on Wednesday, and then as soon as that's over, they'll run over to Goldie's to go to the open mic there.
Oh, wow.
No, I don't even do that. I I'm not as into it as some people. I kind of wish I was doing it more, but it's kind of hard when you're a student. I'm a night student as well, so that always like takes up one night of the week. But not only that, as we were talking about before, you can't, like, as a stand-up comedian, essentially will just tell the same jokes night after night to different audiences.
Yeah.
But when you're starting out, so many of these rooms are just they're comic run rooms, and they're just full of comedians. Like, the audience will be 90% comedians, so you're getting the same audience twice or 3 times or 4 times, hearing the same old joke, and they're not going to respond to it the right way anymore. So I kind of don't like going a lot unless I have something new. And if I am going to go out with something new, that takes a lot of work, especially if I'm not going to tell a joke. If I'm going to tell a story, that's like a lot of memorization as well. And that's very time consuming. There's the writing, and then there's the memorizing, and then there's just like practicing, and then there's like redoing it, and then memorizing it in the new way, and try not to get confused with how you used to be doing it. So it's just takes a lot of work, and you always want to I always kind of want to do it right the first time with that audience of comedians, because you're not going to get the right response from them the second time. So it's very helpful to do it right the first time.
Yeah, I actually meant that in a kind of like a admirable way, how you're kind of devoted to your craft. You started just last November and been up 45 times. If we can, jump right into it. This art form of comedy, it's kind of really interesting how you can get a reaction is creating that element of surprise. Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So what we were talking about before was in a joke always needs to be surprising. If something is obvious, it's lame, right? Like nothing that doesn't shock is going to be surprising. Like, I guess what we were talking about earlier was like classic one-liner structure. When people are first doing jokes out in vaudeville or whatever, it's pretty much broken down to a science what a joke was precisely. And the one-liner particularly goes as like, first it's called a one-liner, but there's 2 sentences. Like there's a premise, you establish that premise, and then there's a twist after, and then there's your second sentence is going to be a twist or the surprise. For example, one of the jokes that my favorite comedian does is my ex-girlfriend had a parakeet. Oh, man, that thing never shut up. But the bird was cool. That's from Anthony Jeselnik, and he's probably one of the top one-liner comedians right now. I might throw Dimitri Martin's name into the mix of like the best one-liner comedian in contention for the best one-liner comedian. But he does a lot more storytelling than Jeselnik, who's just straight one-liners like that. So that was done for like a really, really long time. And it wasn't until like the 60s when Lenny Bruce started that people started doing like the stories that were sort of more familiar with stand-up today. That's much more modern. The storytelling like that you see like Louis C.K. and Jerry Seinfeld and George Carlin do. That's all built from like Lenny Bruce, who really did revolutionize how stand-up was done.
We're talking about the like element of surprise, something unexpected, can make people laugh. Yeah, we've hung out at Goldie's together. That's where we met. For me, I'm just learning, but just doing a different voice, and people laugh. I'm not necessarily saying something funny, and that seems to work because I guess it's along the same lines. It's something that somebody's not expecting you to do.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, that's interesting. Like, there is that like philosophy about it that it always does need to be surprising. It's something that like I sort of have mulled over a lot since reading that book, and I sort of agree with it, but like, yeah, sometimes if something is just really silly like that, then like, yeah, that can get a laugh too. There's still like, in the same manner, like with that one-liner I just told, there, like, I established like a premise, and then like when I gave you the twist, it like put an incongruity in your brain.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like what made it so surprising when when you resolved that incongruity by learning, oh, he was actually talking about his girlfriend. In the same way, it's sort of incongruous for us to hear a strange voice from somebody, and that can be sort of shocking in a similar way. Maybe that would be the argument that somebody would make if they were like a very strong proponent of a joke is always a surprise and incongruity. That's probably what they would say. I'm not sure if I like fully agree with it.
Yeah, you mentioned also that aspect, how comedy has evolved is the storytelling, because I noticed lately through watching stand up, going to the local clubs and actually going more online now and watching comedians like Chris Rock and others, is you really learn a lot about issues. Like it really sheds light on issues, and you learn a lot.
You learn a lot about people, and you learn a lot about yourself, and that's one of the like wonderful and terrible things about it, is that like when I'm in a conversation with anyone, like I want it to go well, and they want it to go well, right? So maybe you're a little bit more disingenuous with that person that you're speaking to, and they are too, because they have like a social investment in how it goes to some extent. Like, and I like just like we all need to sort of get along, because otherwise people are going to call us ass to each other. We're all going to be ass. But when you're on stage, that audience has like, they have no real reason to like who you are, so they're not going to give you those fake laughs, because they don't about you. So it really does like cut through the crap, and you learn a lot about what is actually funny. Like I think you get a lot more truth than you do when you interact with people in a normal day-to-day way.
The other thing about doing stand-up, the art form, is you can't make it too rigid. I mean, like you're gonna mention like writing jokes, coming up with jokes. I notice a lot of people do this. I think I've seen you do this. Is you'll notice something during the course of the night that happened, and kind of somehow weave that into your routine.
Yeah, no. Sometimes I do that, but most of the time, what I'm actually like, this is sort of like, I kind of even know if I want to say this, but a lot of the time, like I will have that prepared, and I will like create I'll say that thing, but I'll create the illusion that it's sort of off the cuff, that I'm noticing something, because while you're doing it, if people are like painfully aware that you're reciting a speech, they don't really give you the same amount of credit as if you're just naturally funny. Like I think improv like gets a big break compared to stand-up, because everyone knows that it's spontaneous. If you can make your joke telling seem spontaneous, I think people will like you more rather than if you're just writing a speech. So I try and create that illusion to some extent, so that I can get that kind of a break with the audience.
Yeah, something I found out last week is, because I bombed last week, is energy. And I noticed that when another stand-up went up too, I didn't get so much into his routine. He told good jokes, but he didn't seem to have that energy.
By energy, do you mean like big energy, or like energy that matched the room?
Okay, maybe energy is not the right word. Is actually like a hybrid of being comfortable on stage and kind of having that organic connection to the audience, to the stage, and just having that energy to go with it.
Yeah, well, what I think that like a lot of comedians the mistake they make, and it's a mistake that I make all the time, is that I want to kill. I want to like floor the room, and you can't just floor the room. You can't go from 0 to 100 in no time. Like, if the audience isn't with you and you like go like big energy, then you're going to sort of look like a goofball and people are going to be like, what are you doing? Like a lot of times, like if they are like at 80%, like maximum energy, then you can bring them up to that 100 by going to 100 yourself. But if they're at like 40, if they're not really with you and you go to 100, you just like sort of just get completely disconnected from them, and they're just not on board with what's happening anymore.
No, that's a good point you make, because you definitely have to pick up the vibe of the audience. And I mean, when I was talking to you that other night and other comedians, you guys mentioned that is, I guess, like compliment, kind of be consistent. If the audience is a certain place after the last comedian that went on, kind of have to go with that level of where they at.
Yeah, no, you're totally right. Yeah, you sort of need to sort of start where the room is at and kind of be a little bit more chilled out. It's kind of like a really hard lesson for an amateur comedian to learn, especially at like an open mic night like that, because when you go to an open mic, you're going there to test new jokes. You're not going there to bust out everything in your repertoire to have like the most killer set that you can. So if you're gonna do if what you're gonna do is high energy, then if that's your plan before you go out, then you're sort of like you're stuck, right? You're just gonna do it anyways. So maybe you don't really get the proper learning experience that you'd get if the room was at a place that would sort of match the energy of the material that you would be doing.
Are there certain limits that you put on yourself that, like, there's certain issues you won't touch, certain things you won't make jokes about, some places you won't go?
No.
Really?
I think that's kind of like what my problem is that I sort of I can be like incredibly dirty and just foul, and I won't say like the N-word or anything like that, but I definitely don't shirk from saying retarded if I think the joke would benefit from that. If like I'm not going to be making fun of like the mentally challenged or anything, but if I think that's the right word, then I'll say that word. I haven't said or anything on stage because I know that would just upset too many women, and especially considering that like Susie is like a really important person in the amateur scene. Like I just don't want to say words I don't want to bother her too much because I want to have a rapport where she can give me sets. It's kind of it's like so lame that I would do that, but yeah, I have no reason to say that word either. That's just the nature of it. I definitely have some dirty jokes that make people uncomfortable, and people have been like, talk to me, and they're like, I don't like that you close with that joke because I don't really want to follow it. But I don't know. If it's dirty, I'll do it.